Hey gang, it's KR King of D&D Homebrew, continuing my series on the Rules Cyclopedia. What I had said I was going to do, and I did, was take the party of five, characters that I'd created, put them in a dungeon environment, and just go through the, game term sequence, encounter, evasion, and then combat sequence. Now, a couple things here. I'm using Owlbear Rodeo because I want to show this on a YouTube channel. Well, this system was designed to be played at tabletop. It was designed to be you were mapping. So you would have a dungeon, I'd have it sitting there, and then the players would draw the dungeon out as I described it. And, this is kind of lost. This was the exploration part of D&D that I think has suffered the most as the game has evolved, the modern game. Since I've been back playing, I don't see people writing out dungeons anymore. Certainly, virtual, you had dungeons, but you lost that element of having to make those dungeons, being an explorer. Because, Lewis and Clark, when they came back, Jefferson said, "Hey, where's my map?" We didn't map. We just kind of, walked along, they'd be like, what are the great explorers, of the, 15th, 16th century. Mapping was a big part of this, right? And maps were valuable, right? For trade routes and whatnot, avoiding, shoals or dangerous areas or whatnot. So a lot of times people just either give people a map or they will just describe it. It'll be, theater of the mind for a dungeon. But again, to me, this was always like, in one sense, like a tourist, right? A tourist, you're not making a map. You're just going on. You have maps, but you can just wander the streets, but you risk getting lost. If you just drive on random roads and just keep going and turning here and there, how do you find your way back? Well, it's been abstracted. We don't really do that anymore. And you see this when you do a virtual because the map's sort of laid out in front of you. You're not creating that map in everywhere you go. And the thing about making a physical map was if you had an empty area, you'd say, hey, there's something here. So you'd start searching for secret chambers and whatnot. Certainly if you come to a hallway that just dead ends, we would search. There was just something about that. You don't see that in the virtual game anymore. The other thing is that I did this just as I rolled, right? And I rolled for the number of creatures, goblins in this case. And what happens is you see the deadliness of the old school D&D. It's basically down to initiative. And so people talk about this and I let that number of goblins. I wanted to do rules as written. I didn't give the players, for example, healing potions, even though one character had 120 gold. We used to sell healing potions. I said, well, that's not the way the game is said to be. You may want to make adjustments, as you'll see. So let's go inside. We're going to go using Owlbear Rodeo, and I'm just going to run this party of five, kind of show you the process of this as best I remember. Again, I keep mentioning this all the time. One, they don't tell you how to play D&D in this Rules Cyclopedia, really. A little bit. Scattered here and there, some advice on running a campaign. But two, we had so many house rules. By the time I started playing this, I had played D&D for over 15 years. So we had all sorts of, and so we would look through these rules and go, well, this, nah, that's not how we're going to do it. This, nah. Well, I'm trying not to do that in explaining this rule system because, one, it's like as if you just picked up the rules and said, how do I play this game? You wouldn't have any knowledge of, well, this doesn't work with that. You got to play it, right, to figure that out. And two, I don't want to go through all the explanation of all that because you've got to figure out your own house rule system. And you may have sons because we were coming at it from the past of playing all these games, and everybody else is coming at it from, well, maybe if you're like me, you've had that past, but a lot of people are coming from the future, right, and going back where they've played a lot of D&D and they know how to do it. So let's go in there, just run this. I let the chips fall as they may, as you'll see. So let's go. All right, so I'm going to use Owlbear Rodeo to show this simulation of a few turns of moving through the dungeon and then having a little battle. As I said, this is highly unrealistic. This game was designed to be run as a table, sitting around a tabletop, the players drawing out the map. They would not be looking at a computer screen and all the distortions I talked about in my intro of that process. But this is what we got. We're doing this for a YouTube channel, right? This map that I've selected, Frank Mentzer used to use this, the guy who wrote Beck Me, and he said he used it over 30 times with various groups. What I used to do when I was reusing maps, I would sometimes change the entrances or exits, or I'd turn it around north-south so that it was the opposite as the players were drawing it, and they never really saw until maybe if they drew the whole thing, and depending on the amount of time between it, they'd be like, my God, this is that same map. But really, they never really noticed that as they were drawing it out. I'm coming down here. Well, first of all, this map is a classic of this period, all square rooms, nothing out of the ordinary. Why? Because you had to draw this, right? If you get your protractor out and start making oddly shaped rooms, it was a pain to draw. So these were very symmetrical or whatever. And then these are secret doors. I didn't put them on. This is, again, the way I'm thinking now, virtual tabletop. In fact, I could put these in my map because the players aren't looking at this. So these would be secret doors. Secret doors here, here, and then a few others. That's a secret door. That's a secret door right there. A lot of secret chambers and stuff. And you did this because it was a big part of the game to be looking for secret doors. In the original, the group came in, there was this sort of semicircle here. I just made stairs. This is our group that I rolled up. Derwin is a dwarf, Xena is a cleric, Merwin is a magic user, Drago the thief, and Rena the elf. So here's Rena the elf, and she got to have 2 spells. She could only take 1 per day. And I picked Magic Missile and Charm Person for Merwin, or Mervis. That's interesting, Mervis. I'll have to change that. I took Sleep and a Shield. What they say in the rules on this, they say you should pick this. They also go into elaborate detail explaining what a charm does, how it works, and they tell you you may not want to give a charm out. Now, this is an interesting, because charms are very powerful in this game, right? They only get checks depending on their intelligence, oftentimes weeks or months or whatever, unless they're really high intelligence. They'll do what you say up to a point. If you are attacking their friends, they'll be confused, or your allies are attacking their allies. If someone attacks you directly, they'll intercede. But you can really control them. Again, if you attack them, it's off or whatever. The other thing they go into great detail is telling how a haste works. And the reason I think they do this is there's a lot of confusion over the years with, your hasted, your movement, spell effects, different things, what's hasted, what's not. You drink a potion. So they go into great detail. But they tell you not only that, but they tell you in here that the first spell that you should give is always read magic, because this allows them to read if they find a scroll. And then they say should be fairly powerful. You should avoid giving this is what the cleric spells. Good spells are Charm, Person, Magic Missile, Sleep, right? They call these good spells because they are all useful attack spells. And I say useful. I've read, one of my viewers commented on useful being combat. Well, obviously, then they say, of course, Floating Disc or Ventriloquism are useful, but these are miscellaneous spells. Again, you can do what you want. Here's the thing. We did not take Read Magic as a first-level spell because we didn't necessarily expect to find scrolls when we were first running. You only have 2, and then you got 1 to pick from. So you wanted to have those spells. Now, again, you could say, well, wait a minute, you have an extra spell. So you could just say, I'm going to have a Read Magic in case. Again, we didn't tend to do that, but I can see how it makes sense. So maybe you're forcing the players to do something. We allowed people to pick their spells. That's what I picked, figuring when I get to another level, get another spell, I'll take that Read Magic if I like. Now, another point of interest is that Mervis, the magic user who took very few items here to lower his encumbrance below 400, he's got 120 gold. He rolled really well in his gold. And in the old days, this is not in the books. In the books, magic is very expensive. A magic potion, the basic magic potion in the book is 1,000 gold. That's where it starts at. Now, we homebrewed this. We allowed you to buy healing potions. I think they were 50 gold apiece, as I remember. So in theory, Mervis, or what is it? Yeah, Mervis could buy 2 healing potions. And at first level, when you're in the dungeon, those heals could be really nice. However, I'm playing this rules as written. You may want to homebrew that if you want. You may want to just say, hey, that's what the book says, and if you get killed, you get killed. That's fine. You go to 0, you're dead. As we'll see, I'm going to talk about later, there's adjustments to that in the optional rules. So I'm going to take Sleep for Mervis, and I'm going to take... where's Rena? And I'm going to take Magic Missile. One Charm Person is more interesting, but when you're first starting off, that may not be... And of course, in the rules, they say don't give it to them, which I would, but we'll just have the standard Magic Missile. The useful spell. Okay. And I'm going to change this to Mervis, because that's his name. I don't know where I got... I guess because Derwin. Mervis. Oops, not Mevis. Mervis. Okay. All right, so they're starting here. And basically, when you enter the dungeon, you go from the day turns into the game turn sequence. And if we look at the game turn checklist, these are 10-minute turns. We always start with wandering monsters. Now, this would be wandering monsters from the last turn, rolled at the end of the last turn. So in the first turn here, obviously, we wouldn't have those. So then we have actions. What do they do? Now, these are 10-minute turns. So there's a lot of different things you can do within that 10-minute turn as you're going along, looking at the walls. The other thing is to, set the stage here. I would tell the players, like, why are they here? Why did they come to this dungeon? Did they just discover an entrance and it's a total mystery? Has it long been sealed and they open it up? They can tell by the stale air. I'm describing this. Is it something that's well known and a lot of people go to? Is it the classic mega dungeon that adventurers go in here to, make their bones, as it were? So let's just say I go, well, there's a notorious dungeon around this area. There's a village and people are constantly being harassed, but adventurers go there. It's kind of remote. It's the remains of an old keep. Monsters hide out there. They want to live there. People don't. And they've tried to seal the entrance over the years. It just doesn't get sealed. So the players go there. People know that, the creatures come out and kill things and take the treasure back or whatever. It's just a classic adventure hook setup. So the players have come here knowing they're going to run into monsters. So it's not going to be like dust everywhere and nothing's been here for 1,000 years. It's going to be something that's creatures are coming in and out of this place and adventurers. There's a chance you could run into parties of adventurers and whatnot. But what you're really looking for is monsters and treasure, right? The classic thing. So that's our setup. The players come down these stairs here, and I'm going to be describing this. We're not going to be using these figures or anything. We're just going to describe. They're going to map this out. So Derwin, the dwarf, sees 60 feet. So he's going to see all the way to here. Now, whether or not you can really tell that opens up in there, I'm not so sure. So I think they're going to use their first action, as it were, to move, right? And they're going to move as a group. Now, this is another thing. When I've played online, I'll go to this. Playing online, and you say, okay, go right. And one person goes like this. They move their, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, like this. And then we've run into creatures. I've seen games online where suddenly something attacks. And we're all standing back there. And I'm like guy going in the online going, well, wouldn't we all move together? I mean, this makes sense to me, right? And then I did have some people say, oh, you're right. They'd probably move together. I'm like, really? So what would happen here, you move to the slowest person. So only Mervis the wizard can move 40. And again, 40 is your game turn movement, right? You're looking and whatever. 30 is your game turn for this situation. And then 90 is if you're running, whatever. That's a round thing. If you run away, you go 90. But anyway, so let's move the group up. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And I'm describing what they're hearing. Do they hear anything in the distance? Not like listening for noises, but just general, what's going on in this place. And the players can be looking at the walls or whatever. The one thing they can't be doing is searching for secret doors because it says specifically in the rules that takes a turn. You can do a 10 by 10 area. Elves get a 1 or 2 out of 6. Everyone else gets a 1. This is the thing about mapping. As I mentioned, when you had an area that's, wait a minute, there's got to be something there. Or there's a dead-end hallway or something where it's obvious. You're probably not going to be searching every round. And if you did say that you were going to do that, as we'll see with the random monster, wandering monster roll, you're going to start running into wandering monsters. So, unless you just decide I'm not having that, it just says in the rules, every 2 turns you roll for 1. But you may say, and I'm saying, this is a busy place to justify that. All right, so they end their turn. We don't roll for wandering monsters here because it's only been the first turn. So we're going to go again, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. They enter this area with hallways going in either direction. Interesting choice by Mentzer here, where, things could be coming down either without doors or anything. Again, the dwarf can look down the hall, 60 this way. He's at an angle here, so he can't see the full thing. They're looking, and what do? We roll for a wandering monster, a 1 out of 6. So let's roll this. 2. No random monster. Okay. So now what do the players do? They're going to investigate this room. And this is where this 10-minute turn thing comes into play. Because, so let's say Derwin says, I'm going to go up to here. Oops, let's go. and look down this hall, and Xena's going to go here and look down this hall, and Rena's going to go here, and then Mervis is just going to stand guard. And the thief says, I'm just going to look around. Maybe if he doesn't spend a turn, right? But are you going to spend 10 minutes in this room and he's going to look in some area? Or let's say he goes up here to look, although he can only see 30 feet, and she decides to investigate this area here. She's got a 10-foot. Again, what is this time, this 10 minutes? And you got to make this call. They don't explain this in the rules, but 10 minutes is looking, whatever. It's just not that specific, unless it specifically says it takes a full turn to do it, within that 10-minute thing. So let's say she is going to look, they're going to spend a turn, and she's going to look for secret. They probably wouldn't do this, and he's looking down here, and I just see corridor going down. Same thing with Xena. She sees this, and he sees 60 feet. Hey, it turns down here, okay? So let's say they decide, hey, I'm going to go down that way. They've spent a turn doing that to look, okay? So we reform up. We're going to move. Five, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Again, what can they see here? We can see with Derwin, he can see just like that. That's all he can see. And then he can see behind them. So if something's coming this way, so let's roll our random monsters. No random monster. Okay? Notice every other turn. This is the thing about these old systems. I use random, but this is our thing. Wandering monsters are a big part of running in a dungeon. They prevent you from just searching. You have battles, and you see it out in the wilderness. You go into the swamp, mountains, 50% chance every day you run into a wandering monster. This was how you generated encounters. I think part of this was you didn't have to do all the work to set things up. You knew things were just going to come up, right? You're just going to go on and that's why we developed elaborate homebrewed wandering monster charts, because they were such a big part of the game. And, they got just in-depth things. And, that's how this system worked. Okay. So they didn't run into anything here. They're going to go again. And we're going to say Derwin 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And I think I just did that independently because I wanted to see. Because look, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. I'll just let her go like that. The thing is, now you've got them strung out a little bit. Would they go like this, maybe? Everyone can go there. Okay. All right. So now Derwin sees this door. Now I have in this map a double door here. But I think that may have been a mistake. And this is the thing, because a double door is pretty rare for something like, well, let's just say it is a double door for now. Because typically it would be a single door 5 feet wide with little walls on either side. And there's an important thing, because when you're going in single file. Whereas in theory, if you open this double door, you can go both in together. That makes a difference in terms of the tactical considerations of a room. But that's how it's drawn up. I just put it that way when I redrew this. Notice, too, I drew this in the original dungeon, these are 10-foot squares. I made them 5. When we get into a combat situation, one of the things is missile fire. You can't shoot anything 5 feet or closer, right? So we always wanted to use 5-foot squares, both for that and to decide how people are moving around you and whatnot. A 10-foot square always seemed to us, for tactical reasons, to be a large area. 5 feet made more sense. In the book, it says 10. And if you're doing theater of the mind, you're not doing any kind of miniatures, you may want to just say, I'm going to have 10 feet and just talk about it. That's not how we played, so that's why I made this map into 5-foot squares. So what happens on this turn, Drago is probably going to go up here and look at this. Oops. All right, he's going to listen at the door to see if he hears anything. And these guys are going to position themselves here. Now, it doesn't say that it takes a full turn to listen at the door. So you could, in theory, say, and this is where you have to make a decision as a GM. It doesn't tell you this in the Rules Cyclopedia, but he goes up, listens, we're going to open the door, and we're just going to use our movement from where he was here, 5, 10, 15, 20 into the room, let's say, or just open the door and look in and see what they see. See a lot more if you go into the room. Okay? So he's going to look at this, and he has a 30% chance of hearing what is potentially in this room. Okay? Oh, look at that, 100. Now, I, as a GM, I'm rolling this. So I just say you don't hear anything. But in fact, I have decided to put in this room our first encounter, and I'm going to have goblins. And this is from a viewer who's commented on having goblins there. If we look at the chart, 2d8 goblins are appearing. All right, so we got 2d8 goblins. 9 goblins. Okay, so 9 goblins are in this room. Now, goblins have 1d8 minus 1 hit die. So what I'm going to do for this example is I'm just going to call these guys their hit die number. So I'm going to do that real quick. All right, if we look at these guys, we've got 3 of them have 1 because 1d8 minus 1. You do have 1, 7, some 6s. You got some big ones. And you got numbers. All right, so then you have this setup. Well, is this room just empty? That's the way it says on the map. It doesn't show you anything. And maybe if you took this map and started playing or looked some sample map, it's just empty rooms, right? Well, why would it be an empty room? I want to create something. These goblins are here. They're living in this space. They're creating something. And in fact, it says that goblins are ambush hunters, right? Maybe there's off, again, I haven't set this up, but maybe there's a goblinoid, empire in here or something. I don't know, that's set up. Or maybe these are just a random troop. If you get into the Goblin King and his cohort, he's 3 hit die. He has a 2 hit die, 1d6 of guards or something. That's going to be a big, with tons of other goblins. That's a whole different thing. I would say with this, it's just, these are, let's just say, random goblins that have found this area. They go into here and hunt. And they wait for people, I would say, to come through this doorway. So what I'm going to do, I made a little map that showed how they've collected garbage and things from the dungeon to create kind of a trap. All right, so now what I've done is I've put all this stuff in here, refuse and stuff. I got some, a skeleton, and this is an altar that I put in there. The goblins just found this, and they've now turned it into their shrine to the goblin god or whatever. But they piled all this refuse and stuff up here so that they can ambush people. Just gives them a purpose. So where would they be? They'd probably be, and we'll put a couple here, a couple back here. Let's see, here's our leader, right? A couple here. Now, notice when you've got this many, could they hide sufficiently? That's a big question, because they're not that smart, right? But maybe, and again, what are they doing? Are they, sitting around, talking or whatever, such that when Drago comes up here, now they're all being really quiet, but Drago is, investigating that, and then they're going to walk up. He says there's nothing there. So they're going to get into battle formation here, and they're going to walk up like this, right? And they're going to open this door. They've heard nothing. Do the goblins, they get a 1 out of 6 chance of hearing this, so we'll say 1 is a good roll, and they hear. They hear them coming up to this door. So they're going to go into their ambush mode as best they can. They're hiding, right? Now, again, I would say, you could say, that doesn't look like they could hide very well in this stuff. But they've created this to hide, right? They want the group to come in like this and go down and around or start investigating, and then they can attack. The other thing about goblins is it just says in the book, 1 weapon. So do you give them, crude like spears, or do you give them short swords, or what do you give them? Things they've captured. If I was going to do this, in a real situation, I might divvy up weapons for them and decide who's got what. Maybe some people are just throwing rocks. I don't know. For this example, I'll just say they all have short swords. That may be unrealistic, but let's say over the time they've captured. Notice they've got some dead people that they've killed. So I'm just going to say that for purposes of this example. Okay. So now we're in this, we're still in game turn mode, right? But we're about to go into the combat, the 10-second mode. And what's going to happen is, or the encounter mode, I guess the first. Is this door locked? If it's locked, you cannot open it without a knock spell or a thief picking the lock. I would say that the goblins will not lock this door. They want people to come in here. They want to ambush them, right? So Derwin on his turn, let's say, though, they make it stuck a little bit, and he has to open the door. Well, according to the rules, you need a 5 or 6 to open a door. You can make an adjustment here. Would they make it such that it was really difficult to open? I don't know. So let's just have Derwin is going to roll a 6-sided die. He rolls a 1, so he's pounding on it. Now they know Xena, he gets a plus. Xena tries. She fails. So eventually they get the door open, but they have to kind of pound on this. So they know, but they didn't hear anything in here. So these guys are totally not going to be surprised. So they're hiding. So they come in. Now this is a double door like this. And they look into the room. And in theory, they could have their encounter right now. The thing about this is, we used to, if something was in some room and attacked us, you could stand in this doorway and protect people out here not to be surrounded. Because that was always the nightmare when things got behind you and started attacking your high AC, i.e. low, bad AC characters, right? So they're looking in here. Do they spot these guys? And do these guys just sit quietly, whatever? You may say, this is just something you can decide. They're not that smart. I'll say 1 or 2, they spot them. No, they don't see them. So they're going to walk into this room. Where do you go? And when do the goblins decide to attack, right? So the group moves into this room. Let's say they go like this. They try to keep their thing here. They're looking around. They're investigating. However, and they're just describing this to you. You're not necessarily using them. This might be at the point where you want to use miniatures. You might want to say, I want to see exactly where you are. What I would tend to do is, what are you doing? And they say, oh, and I'm describing. I say there's an altar. You can just see the corner of it. There's heaps of stuff. Maybe they look and see these bodies. Maybe they go and investigate the bodies. They haven't seen anything. Now, again, I've got 9 creatures in here hiding. I already rolled. They didn't see them. Again, this is D&D. You decide how you want to do this, but they're going to ambush these guys, right? So if they split up, but let's just say that they're smart, because now again, they've never played D&D or whatever, because a lot of times people go, well, I'm going to go over here and look at this, and I'm going to go down here and look at this, because they're trying to loot bodies, right? And I'm going to go look at this, right? But let's just say they get to they say we're going to stay together, and we're going to go something like this. And they're in this position. And Xena says, holy shit, there's someone there. So if we look at our encounter checklist, right, we're going from the 10-minute turns into the 10-second rounds. The first thing we do is we roll for surprise. Now, I'm saying the monsters are not going to be surprised. They heard them. So the players roll, are they surprised on a 1 or a 2? No. So we both are simultaneous. Now, the evasion thing at this point, you can try to evade, right? You don't have surprise, right? It's simultaneous. They haven't surprised each other. So in order to do that, you've got to get initiative. So we're going to roll initiative. So the goblins roll a 3. The players roll a 1. They don't have initiative. The goblins are going to move first. So you're not going to be able to do the evasion. So then we have our monster reaction. And the monster reaction table is this die here. If we roll on this, let's just roll it for it's 2d6, 4. 4, monster is aggressive. Roll again in 1 round. Here's the thing. It says in the description, goblins despise dwarves and attack immediately. So I'm just going to say they're going to attack. They're not just going to stand there and growl. Plus, they've set this up to be, ambushing. Here's their number 1 enemy. They are going to attack. They're not going to, have some issue. So then you have the optional morale check, They have a morale of 6, which would be, but again, 9 against 5. They're outnumbering. This is an optional rule. If you want to say, I roll it every time, oh, look, they didn't make their 6, they rolled a 3, they run away. That's fine. You can do that. In this situation, especially with the dwarf here, I'm not doing that. So we're going to move. And we'll say this blocks, right? This is refuse that they've created, so they're going to have to go here. Does the leader enter in? Maybe he sends his lieutenant. Can he get there? 5, 10, 15, 20. Go in there, Gork. And maybe, he leads the way. I don't know. 5, 10, 15, 20. 5, 10. And maybe there's room. 5, 10, 15, 20. 5, 10, 15, 20. 5. Because can he get in? I'll say he can get in there 30. So the group is surrounded. This is like, holy shit, they did it. They ambushed the party, right? Okay, and now they get to go. They're not going to use missile combat. They're not going to use magic. They're just going to use hand-to-hand with their short swords. We cross-reference. These are up to 1. They're the second on the list, or Derwin. So let's say we have 3 on Derwin. He's the dwarf. They despise the dwarf. 3 here, 2 here. So 3 strikes on Derwin. They need 18s. And he hits. 1d6. He takes 3 points. Derwin has 2 left. That's deadly. Could die right now. 9 guys. The next guy strikes. It's a nasty little battle. 5. Holy cow. The next guy. Oh, another 18. I can't believe it. I may kill this group right away. 3. He's dead. Derwin is dead. TPK? I don't know. Let's see. So, Derwin's out. Next, we have Xena. She's got 2. They also need 18s. Miss. 20. Unbelievable. 3. Xena is now at 2. Okay? So now we come to up here. Rena has, we'll say 2 and 2. She has an armor class of 6. Looking at our Thaco, they're going to need 13s to hit her. She gets hit by this guy. This could be nasty. She gets hit for 1. So she's at, I got a Rena. She's at 5. And the other one hits her again. 5, she's dead. Rena is dead. So now Derwin and Rena are dead. Xena is barely hanging in there. Now we have Dragos. $20. He gets hit for 1. 1 more. He has 3 hit points left. They miss. So that's it for their turn. You've got 2 characters dead. Rena and Derwin. Xena's barely hanging on. So what are they going to do? Now, you could... There's no attacks of opportunity. So when the players have movement, they could try to 5, 10, 15, 20... right? And this door is open. They left this open. They didn't, because these doors automatically close. That's how this system works. So you could say 5, 10, 15, 20. 5, 10, 15, 20. And you could say she can attack here hand to hand, but Merwin has... or Mervis has a sleep spell. He is going to use the sleep at this point. The sleep spell does, I think, 2d8 levels. Okay. So let's roll. 240, so you can get the whole area. 6. 10 levels. That will get the entire group. They're all slept. And since you can then kill any sleeping creature just by walking up to them, these 3 would go around and kill all of the goblins. But their 2 friends are dead. Now, as I said, this is why they're going to search these goblins too. We'll get to that. This is why having a heal potion, we used to sell these because the first encounter, and I just lost 2 party members. You could also say, hey, KR, 9 goblins against 5. Well, and you walked into the room. They hid. I said that they were hiding. They ambushed. This is, this might be. Again, you could also say this was the game. This was the game they played. You saw when you roll those numbers, you can get 18s. Armor class 1, that's pretty good, right? Rena did not have as good of an armor class. Now, there is an optional rule. You'll see how these rules evolved. There is optional rules here for keeping a character alive, which is when they're reduced to 0 or below, they're not yet dead. They're conscious and mortally wounded. They must make a saving throw versus death rate every turn. If they make the first roll, they drop to 0. And then every other one. If you keep making his rolls, someone with the healing general skill, someone with a healing potion can be saved. The healers can, now I'm not using the skill thing, but believe me, if you have skills in your system, you're going to have this. I think we had a home rule that if you got to them and a cleric can heal them, right? So you would say that Derwin the dwarf would have to make his death save. So he has an 8, and Rena has she has a 12. So they're going to have to make that at least once. So here is Derwin's death save, the first one. He blows it. He's dead. I'm rolling wow. And then, because you got to be above, right? And then Rena, she rolls a 2. So they're both dead anyway. Even with the optional rule. Man, the players would be the owlbear. They'd be saying, I don't want to use that thing anymore, right? But that, there are ways to keep them alive. And again, the healing potion. And that's why we would house rule things, right? That's why we said, what is this chart? What is that chart? But this is the Rules Cyclopedia as written. So I got one more video on this system. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my channel. I'm always looking for more. Give me some comments. Love to hear about your experiences with the Rules Cyclopedia or any of these older systems. And keep playing any or all of them. Tell somebody else about it.